already have mine.
I know, these are just awesome.
I
think we
actually
should
made
do
that 40X for
We need a mail.
for educators,
Yeah,
and it is
good too.
This one?
what for educators, yeah.
I need more time in my life to read. I gotta figure out a way to get that.
Budget.
Okay. Budget. Maybe I gotta get up earlier. Maybe that's what it is.
Mhm.
Maybe I could do that.
Mind over mattress.
I will tell you that doesn't work. Just saying.
Okay, well, now that we've discussed, we can't read anymore. Are we ready to go, Justin?
Yes, sir.
All right, let's call the meeting to order, Evan, please.
Yep, Mac,
Here.
Rottinghouse,
Here.
Dyke,
Here,
Coin,
Here,
Glenn,
we lost Janice. She'll be back.
and Jones.
Here.
You. All right, reading of the district mission vision statement by Director Ruttinghouse. I have it memorized, Pat.
I probably do. Our mission, regardless of who you are, what your story is, you can learn and be loved here. Our vision, creating compassionate, competent problem solvers. Our operating principles, information for one is information for all. No surprises, verify facts, think ahead, disagree, explain your thinking, and then commit.
Thank you. Agenda item number 3, approval of the agenda. Do we have any edits, changes, or corrections?
No changes.
All right, do we have a motion?
Janice is back for everybody's information.
I move to approve the agenda as presented.
Second,
The motion and a second to approve the agenda as presented. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. On to agenda item number 4, welcome visitors for public comment. So we're in the library. And I don't know if anybody here would like to make any public comment. Who's raising their hand? Nope, she says no. Okay, just making sure. Okay, well then we will move on to agenda item number 5, comments by board members and superintendent.
Strategic focus area number 1, our hedgehog is student engagement. This is what, and we're going to hear more about this, and we're going to go out with more community. We've been working on this for the last 3 years. Now we're at the point where we're ready to have more of a public, victory and share the next steps on this. And that is career and pathways that we've been working on at our high school. But it's more than just a high school. It really is a K-12 system that we're at. So we're finishing up some of our real clear action plan. And really working, I appreciate the board's leadership on this and really give good nudges as well. Had some good, conversation with President Mack about how we can get more engagement with some of our businesses and local business leaders. We're partnering with the Area Development Corporation. And, we have dreams of, what could Comet Cafe, Comet Shop look like? What could internships and cooperative learning look like? What would a world look like where maybe part of your senior year is actually spent out in the community, doing the actual work with real internships. And we know that's a piece for employability. So more will be coming out on this year, but that's one of our top focuses. And again, that's a big piece of Leader in Me, because Leader in Me at the younger levels really starts to talk about employability skills, the soft skills that we're looking for, 21st century skills as well. Within hedgehog number 2, strategic focus area number 2 of equity, just wanted to share, we did finally get back the student focus group report. So we had some technical difficulties with the organization, but they finally got that back. So we'll be sharing that out with some leadership as we get that disseminated. So again, that's a few months late, but we finally have that. And so we're proud to work next steps and recommendations. Strategic focus area number 3 of healthy culture. We are really focusing on more staff collaboration, and you're going to hear more about this with our department meetings, our grade level meetings, and in some places they're called professional learning communities. But we know the next level up for us in student and leadership of our staff is even a higher focus on collaboration, because we know the team always outperforms an individual. So you're going to hear more about that, presentations on what we're doing within those work. We've been doing much of this work for years, but we want to align and accelerate it more. And then finally, strategic focus, last one would be still learning these new, because we had 3 done for so long, of healthy culture. A couple of things. One, we're really leaning into our culture leaders. We know October could be a tough time for staff culture and even student culture. So we're making sure we're keeping close monitor on that. But so far it's been very business as usual. It's felt very calm this year, which is again don't want to jinx it, but that's been a good thing, contrasting that from the start of last year. The other thing we're going to do, we've gotten some feedback from some community members in different pieces, just wanting to have a health dashboard, better monitoring some of the attendance rates and illness rates that around the campuses. So we're planning on getting that live. You'll be able to monitor what is our 10-day rolling average of student absences, which is not just illness, it would be any student absence, but you can see that. And also keep an eye on the COVID positivity rate for the county. That's really the only really short up data that we have. Some of the data other is not as accurate anymore, just the changes on how COVID reporting has happened. But we do want to have, be able to give our parents and stakeholders and staff, some idea of what we're looking at health. So that's what's going on in the district.
Thank you. Board members?
I gotta unmute. I'll go. The election deadline is drawing near on Thursday, and I'm decided to wait until now to publicly state that I'm not going to run to seek re-election for the school board. Looking back at the calendar, it was actually 28 years ago tomorrow on a Tuesday that I was first elected to the board in 1993. I served for 12 years until 2005. During that time, we had a lot of declining enrollment, budget problems, budget cuts, etc. It was a rather difficult period in the school district's history. And then in 2013, as most of you all know, I ran as a write-in and was reelected. And I'm finishing out this 8 years of my service to the board. So it'll be a total of 20 years on the school board. In the last 8 years, we've accomplished a lot positive things, with a new middle school that is designed more in the 21st century for teaching capacity than what a 1930s building was. We solved the problems of the 20 or 30-year-old issues with the transportation center, getting a new one of those put up. We also solved the 20 plus years of problems with having baseball fields that flood on a regular basis, or too regular for most people's attitudes or stomachs dealing with sports, and put up new complexes for that. As we'll find out tonight in a report from Superintendent Fisher, our student testing is improving. Nothing is where we'd like to be necessarily as far as improvement or at the level we'd like. However, I think most of us know that student test scores are not just the student's responsibility or the teachers. It's a family, and making sure that homework gets done and that we're reading year round. And as a former first lady used to say, it takes a village to raise a child. So I've been glad to be a part of that village for 20 years on the board.
Thanks, Scott.
We do appreciate that, Scott.
Any other comments from board members? Okay. If there's no other comments, then we'll move on to committee reports. And we don't have any of those because we didn't have any committees because school started up and they've been super busy. So
we did have a policy committee, but we actually had done all the policy work last spring and kind of in a good spot. So.
Oh, that's fantastic. Agenda item number 7, the mission vision presentation. And I believe we have a principal here for this one.
We like to actively make sure that we are consistently teaching our mission and vision, our values, and we've been doing that. We've done that for every staff member. Joe will talk about that, but we also think it's important to have that time to, reinforce with the community. So we want to welcome Joe Taylor, who is our middle school principal, but is also our executive director of mission. And so he's really the culture keeper. So he's here tonight to talk.
All right, so this will be the 5th time that we've done this presentation. So usually Tom Harskamp is with me and he talks about distributed leadership at the same time. the two things go hand in hand, but so we presented this for the new teachers when they came in. We presented it for the people at Washington, the people at Lincoln, people at the middle school. We have plans to go up to the high school and teach it as well. And I've also taught it to the people at Barn Transportation Center and our janitors. So this stuff bleeds all the way through every part of our organization. It is super important. It is really the it's like the presentation says. Really, so by the end of this, and I'm not going to give you guys, I'll give you guys the abbreviated version. But really, you can look at the key components of our Comet way of life and connect this, connect your experiences in on our campuses to our mission, vision, values, and commitments. Like every organization, when you walk in a campus, it has a feeling, and that feeling comes from our mission. It's the why we exist, and that's the reason why we're here. And much like Pat read today, and I'm sure all of you, it could roll off of your tongue. And really, the key phrases were regardless school. So that is that's our DNA. If you cut us, that's what we bleed. If you walk into a Chick-fil-A, it feels different than if you walk into a McDonald's, and that's because they're living out their mission. I bet McDonald's has a mission too. It's just that it doesn't have a lot to do with perhaps customer service or things. And don't get me wrong, I love McDonald's. It just feels different than going to a Chick-fil-A because they really value that experience, right? So we value our experience as well, and that experience comes directly from our mission, which is regardless of who you are, what your story is, you come and be up here. Next slide, please. Our vision, these are the guardrails. This is the clear picture of the future of where we're going. When Mike put in the vision, the analogy that just comes to mind is like we're heading down a highway, and our vision is our guardrail on the right and guardrail on the left. And occasionally we start to veer one way or another for whatever reason, but the guardrails have to keep us centered. As long as we're staying within those guardrails, we're doing the right work. So in our organization, we like to chase the thing that's new or sexy or shiny or fun. And sometimes that's outside of our vision, and that gets us in trouble. And then we start chasing different acronyms or different programs or things that are not aligned with where we are clearly headed. So our vision, next slide, creating compassionate, competent problem solvers helps create those guardrails for where we're going. And this is an ongoing thing. This isn't something that we just are going to reach that destination. These guardrails keep going and going and going. And I don't think it's ever like, are we ever compassionate like all the way? Are we ever competent all the way? Are we ever a problem solver on everything? The answer is no. We're always trying to achieve mastery in those things. Next slide. Our values, this is our expected behaviors or who we are striving to become. Sometimes, and this is what we talked about with our new teachers, sometimes when we bring people in, their values are not directly aligned with our organizational values. And that's okay for now, but eventually we want to make sure that our values are aligned, and then work gets a lot easier. We start to be on the same page on things. Occasionally there are people in our organization that the values are here and we're here. And then we just simply say, hey, yeah, it's just not a good fit. And that's okay. Sometimes our values are that way as well. Our values are, we do what's best for all kids. What's the opposite of that? We do what's best for ourselves,
Yeah.
right? And that's different, isn't it? We are family, or we're a unit, like we're a single person who's just operating alone. So we are committed leaders. The opposite of that are just people who show up. We don't want to be that. We are passionate and we are invitational. Now, about the passion part, this is where people have to find their own personal why. And we all have different reasons why we became educators or board members or, fixing the books.
He didn't say cooking.
I did not. And I didn't mean that in a bad way. Working on we all have our why. And when you lose track of your why, you lose track of that passion. And who notices when your passion is gone?
The kids.
Everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody notices that. So we encourage people to be passionate leaders and to be passionate about whatever they're doing. If they're teaching whatever, keyboarding, then be passionate about it and be the most exciting, dynamic keyboard teacher that there is. The opposite of that is somebody who is just showing up and coming to work, and that is not a good place to be because we all feel it, we all know. And then we are invitational. So this is the opposite of that is closing your door and doing what you do, right? Or not greeting people at the door, not giving high fives, or being that smiling person that's out there greeting people when they're coming in. And I tell you what, it becomes a lot better place to be when we are these things. Again, think, you know, a restaurant that is not great, and then a restaurant that is. They embody these things. So our commitments are how we operate every day, or how we try to operate every day. Go ahead. We want to honor the family. We want to keep calm and teach. Now, at the end, the thing that we talk about with our new teachers is the student who is not paying attention, who's joking around in class and who's causing a problem for everybody else. Is that the most important student in the room? No. We want to keep calm and teach. We want to honor what's going on in there. And we want to keep the main thing, the main thing. So that side note of that thing, we got to deal with that, but that's not like that's not the reason, right? We're here to give a really great education to the students who are giving it back to us. We want to assume positive intent. The opposite of that is assuming negative intent, and that's like walking around thinking everybody's out to get you, and that's not a good place to be. Or that, and we try to really encourage people to, and we model these things every single day too, the best we can. No surprises and being vulnerable. Now, one of the things that we talk about with the new teachers are we all got stuff in our lives that we're dealing with, you know, and being vulnerable is super important with the people that we're working with and our students. I was sitting in a really great writing teacher's classroom, and she was talking about something that was very, very painful. It was a trauma that she had experienced a while back, and the kids connected with her immediately. And then she was teaching poetry, and the kids were engaged in poetry in middle school. Can you guys believe that? Because she was vulnerable and she was expressing things that were real in her life, and that, like, the kids just they were drawn to that. People think that trust has to be before vulnerability, and that's opposite. You have to be vulnerable so that we can trust each other. And senior leadership, we went through some training with vulnerability and some empathy training, and it was like we went from here as a senior leadership team to here in about 3 hours. It was much like sitting on the rooftop with somebody in a war zone and experiencing different things like that. We did that in a very controlled, safe environment where we shed a lot of tears and we really were vulnerable to each other. So that's what we're asking people to do, is to be vulnerable, to be real. And part of vulnerability is understanding that everybody is dragging. I used to think of it as a backpack. Like when I carry a backpack wherever I go. And when I got home, I used to go in my house, and before I went in the house, I would take off my backpack, which was like all of the load of stuff that was on me from the day. And for working parents, you guys understand this, I would hang it up on the hook so I could leave the work at work, and so I could be like dad time, husband time. Well, the same thing happens when we walk into our building, and it's much like a sled, really. And I'm just trudging up to the building, and I'm thinking about my uncle who's sick, and my grandma who's in the hospital, and my kids are having a hard time. And what we have to do is kind of unhook that sled and leave it at the door, so then we can be the best version of ourselves when we walk in our building. And that's what we encourage our teachers to do, to not forget about it, we want to be human and understand that this stuff, but also, like, if you need a break, like a timeout, like take one and give yourself a break and go get your mind right so that you can be here and you can be the best version of yourself. All right, next slide, man. All right, so this is really our way of life, and you got the 8.5 minute version of something that usually takes about 30. But we want to continue with this into our organization because we really want our students to be able to feel this. We want our customers to be able to feel this. We want our parents to be able to know what's going on, and to be able to know that this is the way we live. So, thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
Just real quick, Joe, does anybody have any questions? Because that was a great presentation. It was very thorough. I appreciated it.
Thank you.
Does anybody have any questions? I just have one for you. How can the board help support this?
Oh, that's a really good question. I think you guys do a fantastic job of understanding what our mission and vision is. I think as far as the vision goes, because you guys are responsible for, trusting the leader and how we spend our money and all these things. Like, if you feel like something we're doing is outside of that, be like, throw the flag up, like say, hey, no, how does this meet our vision? And I know Mike does a great job of making sure that the things that we are doing and are engaging in are mission and vision focused. But and if we ever get outside of that, like, yeah, I think that's a big job that you have, is to say, does this really meet who we are, or who we want to be, or what we're striving to?
I think it's important to remember one thing. You said leaders, Mike, but it's all of you, all the senior leaders, all of our staff, all of our kids. It's all of them have a part in this, right? And each of them participate and want to do things. And you're a great example, right? You came to bring this presentation and talk to us. Make sure we keep it in our mind, and it's important that we remember those things. Which is great. So we really appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, we're getting about 6 minutes.
All right, great. Thank you. All right, let's move on to, I think, something that we've all been waiting for. Agenda item number 8. Statewide assessment of student programs and data report presentation. And I believe this is Fisher.
It is me, and excited to talk about this. Apologize for the delay. So here's kind of the timeline on this. We did not get the data until about the middle of August. And then when you get the data, you don't get these nice, neat reports. You get a spreadsheet for each grade level that has 300 columns. And so it's taken us hours and hours of time. The principals, myself, sit and just, we call it disaggregate the data and get it into chunks. And the way we approach data is we want to ask questions and then get data, answer questions. And so I appreciate, we're still processing data. We're not done yet, but we have enough that we can finally go out publicly with the community. And we're also sharing this, obviously, with our staff. And our staff also goes deeper into it than we will tonight. Obviously, we could spend hours getting really deep into this, but I want to give you at least the high level so we know what the celebrations are, what the growth areas are. And just as a basis, the ISAS, the Iowa Statewide Assessment for Student Progress, is our statewide test that is what's called AYP, which is annual yearly progress. Are we making the annual progress that we want to achieve as a school district? And there's also benchmarks set by the state and the federal government on this. This is our second year, this much more rigorous exam. And so this is the second year, because remember, this is also our third year, but we didn't take it last year due to COVID. The state didn't do it. This work connects with our vision of creating compassionate, competent problem solvers. Specifically, this is connected to the competent. Because we're going to talk a lot about tonight. The test scores just show the knowledge. It doesn't show if we're doing anything with the knowledge. And that's what I alluded to earlier. It's not just to know it. You have to be able to do things with it. And that's where the problem solvers come in, value beyond the classroom. That's where we're talking pathways and career readiness and college readiness and those different things. And so that's really exciting. But this is a big piece, because if you don't have the knowledge, you can't interact with it. So a couple of targets you want to be aware of. Oh gosh, my toolbar for Zoom in the way, is that we see between 90 and 100% of our students showing growth. So that doesn't necessarily mean they're proficient. It just means they're getting better from what they did last time. So that's a big target. The other federal target, and a good man that really mentored me on this, a man named Dr. John McKenzie, who's now retired from the AEA, but he was the student improvement expert with AEA Central Rivers for many years. And he really listened to us. What you want to go for is a 5% increase proficiency students. So you want to make sure, we're trying to make 5% every year, which seems like a modest goal, but when it's a huge undertaking to do that. So again, that's our targets, what we were shooting for. Gosh, here we go. So let's start with celebrations. Here's our celebrations. Our district English language arts proficiency scores by grade span. So this is by grade span is what we look at from grade to grade, year to year. In 2019, we were at 53.7% proficient, and in 2021, we were 61.3% proficient. That's 7.7% plus in proficiency across the district, and obviously that meets our target of 5% that we were trying to grow our students. Again, are we happy with 61%? Absolutely not. We want 100%. But we definitely know we need to keep moving. But if we keep making progress like this, we can easily get in the 70s and 80s pretty quickly. So this is a huge celebration. District science proficiency scores. Now, science is a little different. In math and English language arts, we test grades 3 through 11. In science, we only test 3 grade levels. and it is 5, 8, and 10. So that's the only grade levels that are tested. So, but in the grade levels that were, and we were very, very unhappy with the score a few years ago, 39.7. That's not acceptable. And again, not that we're happy 1.7% proficient, however, 12% gain. And so we're making that's over double of what normal progress would be. So that is a huge, huge celebration as well. So again, 12% increase in our science proficiency scores. This is the other huge celebration, district percentage of students who showed growth. You have to understand, it's a little harder with science. We don't know students show growth because they only take the test 3 times. So that's a little bit harder. You can do that, but it's very difficult to get that. And we'll still work on that. But what we do have right away is in our ELA, in our school district, 96% of the kids that took the ELA test showed growth in the exam. Now, again, it doesn't mean they're necessarily proficient, but it means they got better from the last time they took the test. They're increasing. And we have a bunch of anecdotal stories that are great. You know, we had a student that literally showed 4 years growth on their math test. Unfortunately, still non-proficient. However, 4 years growth is huge and making those leaps and bounds. And we had, you know, lots of that. That was a math example, but we had ELA examples as well. But the math examples, 4 years of growth. In math, 91% of our students across the district showed growth in the math exams from last time they took it. Again, want that higher. We'd love to see it in the upper 90s, but again, 91%, knowing that math was one of our biggest challenge areas that we had to focus on. So again, this is a huge, huge celebration. Areas of growth. While 91% of our students showed growth in math, we still need to work on getting more proficiency lines. So we lost a little bit of ground on this. We went from 56.3 to 51.8. So it was a loss of 4.6. However, while that is a challenge for us, we want to see that grow. We saw 91% of our kids showing progress. So we know that that's going to flip around. We've made the heavy changes with our math and fidelity and things that we're doing. So as we dug into the data, while we don't love the 6 down, we do know we're moving in the right direction because again, as kids level up, as they move through the grades, the rigor increases. So we have to keep increasing the rigor for their students as well. So that is an area of growth. Our other growth is this. Our disproportionality is still an issue, especially for our traditionally underserved students. So specifically, and this is identified in federal reporting, students of color, students with IEPs, and students identified in free or reduced lunch. Students in these subcategories continue to have gaps with these groups and how they perform compared to all students. And we're still processing this data. It takes a long time to do this data, but we are starting to see some trends and gaps. We have closed some of those gaps, but they're still much wider than we want them to be. And we'll have more data and share out on that as we get the data processed. But, you know, what are we doing? So, you know, what are our strategies? Our big strategy is student engagement. We know students that are engaged, learn at higher levels, retain at higher levels, apply the knowledge, because again, you know it, but then you need to apply it to move it from your short-term memory to your long-term memory. I know Joe Taylor appreciates that in a book called Made to Stick, which is a great talk about science, a brain science. So it's not just enough they can take the test. We have to apply it so it moves to their short to the long-term memory. And so, but we know students engaged that are doing that. The other big piece that has come with this, and we talked about tonight with our collaboration that you're seeing in our grade level meetings and our department meetings and in our professional learning communities, is making sure that we're rigorously aligned to standards. And as long as we're aligned to standards and our exam is aligned to the standards, we know we're going to have great gains. The alignment to our standards is much better than it was 3 years ago, 4 years ago. And you saw that was a big piece of why we moved forward, which leads us to teacher collaboration and self-efficacy. As teachers are working in small groups, we know the team always outperforms the individual. So when teachers aren't having to work individually, they're working at small groups, you know, in like collaboration teams. That efficacy, which is a fancy word for their confidence and competence to move forward, is then we're seeing much greater gains. So those are two of the big things: value beyond the classroom engagement, alignment to standards, and this teacher collaboration and self-efficacy. And what does this get us to? Then we can do something with the knowledge, value beyond the classroom, where you're going to see down the road the internships, the cooperative learning, the taking more college credits sooner before you go in, find your passion areas sooner, that we can take this competence that we're demonstrating and really doing something with it as problem solvers beyond the classroom. So that's something we're very, very excited for. So that is the high level piece. Again, we'll have more data as we keep processing, and but I just want to see what questions the board might have.
Board members?
This is more of a comment, but the decline in math was kind of across the state. I read that in the Des Moines Register, correct?
We did see that across the state and even across the nation. We're seeing some of that data. That ELA tended to increase, and math was still a struggle in a lot of districts across the state. But what was heartening for us to see is, even though we had a little bit of decline in proficiency, how many kids were still growing. And we're not going to use this as a crutch. We're not going to use this as an excuse, but I think we do have to make sure that we are aware of this. We had kids in hybrid for quite a while. We had over 300 kids, nearly 300 kids in school, which we know was a safe alternative, but wasn't necessarily always best practice in terms of learning. And we also know ELA transfers probably a little easier to digital learning as some of the math lessons did. And we saw that. And we have done some analysis of analyzing our school to U kids versus non-school to U kids. So we've looked at that. I don't have data for that to share because that's a huge piece. But in light of, I'll be honest, there was a risk of like, are we going to show any gains? We've done so much work and our staff has worked so hard, but we had a lot of challenges we had to overcome. To see our staff and our kids overcome those challenges and show these gains this year, I'm very, very proud of them.
Yeah, absolutely.
I am too.
Other board members, any other comments, or did you have any?
Well, I was just gonna say, I also think that, I know the engagement is important and teachers working together, but if we can get those standards aligned across the district, I think that's just really, really, really important. And I know, having been there when we, at the beginning of starting to work, it's really a lot of work.
I sat in a department meeting day at the high school, and it was actually elected teachers. It was great because even though they're elective teachers out of core areas, they're about these ISAF scores. They were talking about nonfiction strategies, writing that you could get in their elective areas. So this is very much pervasive. Again, the team outperforms the individual. When you're bringing a lesson plan and having other people collaborate with you on that lesson plan and alignment to standards, you get better. And that's a piece that we have a growth area on. And again, it's a very key kind of geeky thing that, again, is really for us educators. But once, letting you know of like this focus on adult learning is going to show us great gains with our kids. And also to share, everything I've talked about is clearly in our strategic plan. It's in our hedgehogs, our strategic focus areas. We are going down step by step on these plans to really see that. And what I'm really heartened by too is we've planned the work, we're following the plan, and we're seeing gains.
Any other comments from board members? So I guess the question is, where do we go from here, Mike?
We continue with the work, and now what it is we really feel like we're aligned. Now it's acceleration.
Okay.
And now we've got to move faster. We want to see greater gains, and it's hard to jump 10, 12 points a year. I mean, we'll shoot for that, obviously, but we want to do that. The next piece is we're realizing, how are our advanced kids doing? We want to level the advanced kids up even more. And I don't have that yet. That's a really deep data. I'll have to dive into more because it just takes time to do that. But our advanced kids that are already proficient, but are they showing greater gains? Are we pushing them harder? And we're looking at our TAG program, our advanced program, and how we're doing that as well. Because we want kids to be able to not just say I'm going to college or college bound, but say, hey, I want to go to X, the greatest colleges in the world, for whatever that may be. And again, that could easily be college for anything, because Simpson's one of the greatest colleges on the planet. But also, hey, does somebody strive to go to Stanford, Villanova, and again, our colleges in Iowa are fantastic too, but we also want to make sure we're looking at all options and kids feel prepared for that. Because if we've done post-secondary readiness surveys, which I appreciate Jeff's done a lot of that, we've gotten that feedback in the past. Some of our 5-year cohort graduates say, I didn't feel as prepared as I needed to be. And we've taken that to heart. And so that leads into what we're doing. So, yep, we will continue to do what we're doing. You're seeing some major transitions in our math curriculum and what we're doing there. And we're going to see, that flywheel continue to move. We saw, great gains in what we're doing in terms of more kids showing growth. Plan on seeing that in the middle school as we have, get some of that fidelity in there with the new curriculum. So just keep moving faster.
Excellent. Thank you. Well, I think that was a great presentation. It was good information to understand and now know. So I guess the one last question I have is this: does the data typically come that late in the year? So it's really like the next school year that we get it?
We've only done it twice, but it's been different now 2 times. Originally, we got it much later. We got it around December, and now we're getting it in August. And it is frustrating because, we got it right in the middle of like teacher workshop days. Actually, we were instead of habits training. I got the email that it was in. And then, but here's the thing, it's a little different. When we used to have the Iowa assessments, we got these nice tidy reports. It's not that anyway. It is just raw data that takes a long time to process. But I know our teachers have been super hungry for it. They have been tearing this data apart. They wanted it, but it's like, it would have been nice to give that to me in summer. The issue is much of the ELA is actually hand scored by people, the writing, so it takes more time to do that. But I've wondered if we could get some of the scores sooner, but we'll see. That's feedback we're getting to the folks.
It seems like getting those test scores, you know, in summer or even at the end of a school year where you could say, okay, this is what we did and this is where we look good and where we want to change, to build that in for the next school year instead of school has now started, we've got curriculum set, teachers are ready to go, they have their lesson plans laid out. Oh, now we have this new information now. Do we shift and change, or do we wait a whole nother year before we make that change? And it sounds like we're not waiting that time.
The exciting piece is, and this is part of our strategic plan too, and there's actually be a presentation coming up pretty soon, is now grades 3 through 11 doing what's called MAP testing. And MAP testing is a common classroom assessment that is, in our states, it's the same as the ISASS, but it's very similar. It's a computer-based test. It produces data. We're going to take it 3 times a year in different areas, and it's highly predictive of how we're going to do it in the ISASS. So what'll be great, we've been piloting this for a year at the middle school, has some great grades. We've now adopted it 3 through 11. And so we're going to have that data that we're going to be working with and making sure then our classroom assessments, our formative assessments are aligned to that MAP data and standards, and then the MAP data is aligned to ISASS. So it's one of those things where we want to get to the point we have so much data, we can already tell you what the ISASS scores are going to be by June. You know, we haven't had those structures in the past. Moving forward, the MAP test data will be very predictive.
Actually, if I can interject,
Yeah.
the MAP assessment is actually more rigorous than the Iowa assessment. So what we saw at the middle school, we've been doing MAP now, this is our 3rd year, was that our proficiency levels were lower on the MAPs than they were on the Iowa assessment. But the students who were proficient, it seemed to be, it was a very clear alignment. So, and it was predictive. The kids who grew on MAP were the kids who made huge gains in Iowa assessment. So our teachers are able to use that as real-time data to put small groups in place in classrooms and do interventions with kids and pull bubble kids who are right there, but they just need this extra nudge and this extra bump. So we're really excited what we're doing with MAP tests.
And what's interesting about testing too, and people forget this as well, not only is it for assessment, there is some brain science in that too. Of when you take exams, and Joe can speak to this, it actually is a good transfer of knowledge. And so that, not that we just use tests to learn, but I mean, obviously it helps transfer knowledge from long-term to short-term to long-term memory. So here's what's fascinating too. It's also building our kids' stamina, because honestly, if I want to run a half marathon and I can run 15 miles easily, well, gosh, if the MAP test was like a 15-mile run and the ISASS was like a 13-mile run, we know they're going to perform even higher levels. So we're appreciative that we have upped the rigor of our instruction and our assessments. So now our kids are walking the ISASS, and it's feeling easier, because not that it's easy, it's a tough exam, but when the instruction is a higher level, when the other assessments were taking a higher level, it makes the ISASS seem like a lot more doable.
Well, and if you have the small groups of teachers working together too, they can look at that data and then talk about best practices for improving things too. I think that's important also.
Absolutely.
And MAPS, and we'll talk about that more, but it breaks it down into different areas of focus. So an ELA teacher could say, oh, we're really focusing on finding writing the main details, the main idea of the sentence. So they'll pull kids who just need to focus on that. We'll give them a 3-week intervention, booster shot, and then they'll be back in rocking.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Okay. Any other questions, comments before we move on? Okay, let's go on to agenda item number 9, boardmanship goal.
We've been doing this for several years. I was just school boardmanship goal, and gosh, this board has won it many years, but we also just want to make sure, take a dipstick of if the board wants to continue with it, because it is some work to earn those credits. And I just wanted to put it out there that my recommendation is that we continue the boardmanship goal, because it allows us to really promote learning on and getting better. And I think this is a very high functioning board, very rich group, and a lot of it's come from the hard work you put in boardmanship. So I just wanted to see what the commitment was and dipstick kind of the temperature of the board.
Did we get it last year?
Yep, we
I
did.
couldn't even remember because we didn't go.
But we got a certificate.
I have all the plaques. What's cool is once we get the new central services open, which hopefully will be in October, we're gonna find a wall to hang them all up because they're just sitting in my office. There's no place to hang them right now.
I think I've already got mine for this year.
Okay, good for you.
I think so. I'm pretty sure.
I mean, this is totally off topic, but then for those walls too, be kid art. That'd be kind of neat.
Yes, we'll be sure to interest you. So.
Great. So any other comments or do we have a motion?
I wanted to add a comment. One of the primary ways to work on the boardsmanship goal, and especially with the election this November, would be that whoever wins the election, since there are two of us not running, to go to the school board convention for 2 days the week before Thanksgiving, to give them an opportunity not only to work on achieving the boardsmanship goal, but to spend 2 days in Des Moines with other members across the state and to hear the presentations and speeches and reports that are down there. That'll give them a great opportunity to learn more about what actually does the school board do, what are our limitations, how can you achieve goals as a board or a district. So I would encourage whoever does win the election in November to go to that school board convention for more than just working towards achieving the boardsmanship goal, but just to learn about what it takes to be a board member.
Right, because the day before the actual convention, they have the onboarding, right? Don't they have a
They do.
workshop
Yeah,
for
yeah.
new
New board
board
members.
members? Yeah,
And those are all worth points. Yeah.
right. I found that. And the fiscal one. was great to go to.
And we do enough workshops here that those gets points. For you that are taking good to great and for disciplines execution, reading that is points. So it's not as challenging as it looks to get points. Sometimes they all have to sit on these webinars and you can do that, but they have a lot of flexibility how you can earn points.
Right, or even our committees are run.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you need to go on the IASB website and go to the Better Boardsmanship Awards, and then they have drop-down menu, put your own things in. So,
Your questions?
yeah. Well, no, to say what you have done this year, like
Oh,
you add your
excuse me.
committees
Okay,
that you
yep.
were on. I went to an equity conference, so I could put that in as a national conference, you know, just whatever you've done, and they list the different. If you listen to a podcast, which is like maybe 6 minutes at the most, you get 5 points. So, I mean, it's
Can there be
pretty,
any podcasts?
no,
Oh, okay. Just wanted to be
they're
clear.
podcasts.
Okay.
Yeah, and they did a couple of years ago change it to self-reporting rather than the school board association keeping track of it for us. Or in the past, superintendents would report our attendance to different things, but now it's strictly self-reporting.
So,
I need to go in there and do that. I did mine a couple weeks ago, and it takes a while for them to approve them.
so speaking of workshops, so just, does everybody know that Harry Hagelin is retiring? Hagenthal, excuse me, is retiring from the IASB the end of this month or the end of October?
It's sometime in the fall, but he did commit. We had reserved him for a board workshop sometime after the election. We always try to do a workshop at the beginning of the year, but with new board members coming on, wanted to be part of that. So he has offered to continue to do this live and introduce us to who's going to replace him. So we
Right.
get the relationship.
I went to a webinar last weekend. He mentioned that.
Yeah.
He's
So
coming to Charles City and
we got him locked down.
That's
One more time.
So, okay. Any other comments to this one?
I'll move to approve the proposed boardsmanship goal.
second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the proposed boardsmanship goal. Any other discussion? Favor, say aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Agenda item number 10, the Armory land lease.
This is a pretty routine, but we have a really wonderful relationship with the National Guard Armory, which is really cool. And I want to thank the National Guard. They actually made our opening football game really fun. They had a tunnel and gave special camo uniforms to our football team and our cheerleaders. They've been a wonderful partner. There's a sliver of land behind the armory that is not being used. Now, they aren't selling it. They want to keep it, but it has no use right now, and we could use it as a practice field. And so they have proposed a lease where basically, as long as we maintain it, it'd be $1 a year, and which we've done. And we've actually even had permission to realign our fences, which we've done. So we now have a really nice practice facility. We actually had the ground we bought from the housing. We've shaped that up, and now it's a practice field, just pending grass growing. And so, yeah, we're just really appreciative of that. And we still have an agreement also to use the armory itself for functions too, but this is specifically about the ground for a practice field.
So I just have one question. On the lease agreement, the gentleman who's saying is Michael J. Harris. He's retired. Is he still in charge of the guard here, or has he retired? I guess I just want to understand that.
Maybe Evan can shine light on that. My assumption would be he might be a civilian, probably signing.
He's a civilian contractor with the National Guard, but retired National Guard.
Gotcha. Okay. So he has the authority to sign for them and can go into this lease.
Correct.
Okay. I just want to make sure.
A lot of, I experience from my mom because she's in the Army, but you'll see a lot of retired armed services get civilian jobs in their positions. A lot of times they are actually, have full authority, just like they were active duty.
Enrolled. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Well, I think that's great. It's great to have a good partnership with them, and they're so close to us, and it's great to work with the military. So
I move to approve the lease for the armory as presented.
I'll second.
question a second to approve the armory lease as presented. Any other discussion? All those say aye.
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 Motion carries. On to agenda item number 11, the remaining handbooks.
So this would be our staff handbook, our senior leadership handbook, our admin support handbook, the communications handbook style guide, and also our evaluation handbook. Again, and I apologize too that these, gosh, seems a little late. Even if we haven't approved the handbooks for next year, the previous handbooks are still in force in effect. So why they're a little late, I talked about this previously, is we spent a whole bunch of time this year working on grammar and formatting and getting some of the table of contents fixed. And I want to just give a shout out to Sarah Blickendorfer, one of our English language arts teachers. She spent time this summer working on that, but obviously it's very time consuming. And so we are now finally ready to get the approved in their entirety and get them formatted ready. So normally we'd be approving these probably in July or early August, but this year we have a lot of grammar cleanup, which I'm really proud of. So.
Any questions?
I just have one comment.
Yeah.
In the employee handbook on page 5, you have the campuses listed, but you might want to add the innovative campus.
Oh, that's a great piece. See, every year we find something. So you think as late as they are, we'd have it all fixed, but I'll get that in there. So.
That's the only thing I found.
My eyes are about crossed because I read them so many times and then you start to miss stuff. But we had just a credit. We had a lot of people looking at it. Several secretaries were too. But again, Sarah did a lot of work. So we'll get that added.
Okay. Cool. Good.
I'll make a motion to approve the remaining handbooks as amended and updated for the 2021-2022 school year.
I'll second.
A motion and a second to approve the remaining handbooks as and updated for the 2021-2022 school year. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Agenda item number 12.
Can I go back? I just saw James. Because we put to approve the lease for the armory presented, should it be for the land at the armory as presented? Did I make the wrong? I mean,
No, I think so. I think that's fine.
the armory is fine.
Yeah, because that's the way the contract is written or the language is written.
Okay, just want to make sure.
Yep. Thanks. On to agenda item number 12. Financial reports. Ben.
Yeah, so the month of August has been really busy to say the least. So I am pleased to announce we are eligible and ready to certify, and we are in a great position. So I thank the board for that. You guys made great decisions this year. We're gonna increase our reserves and our special ed deficit's gonna go down. So I'm excited to present those numbers to you guys here in October. We received a mental health grant, which is exciting to see what the leadership and staff decide to do with that moving forward. Girls worked really hard on getting everyone registered, and we are working on certifying enrollment right now. We have free and reduced lunch applications in. We got the activity fund transfer made per Iowa code and the board approval. We're looking at continuing to monitor the health fund. And then just a reminder, election papers are due Thursday, the 16th of September, and I have not received any others since last time I was asked. And the withdrawal deadline is the 21st. And we are preparing for our audit on September 27th. So a lot going on right now.
One question for you. It looks like we had quite a use in the health fund. Obviously, in June, May, and July, it really didn't move much, but in August, it definitely.
What you have to remember is in July and August, we have a lot of contracts that are 10 months, so we don't get all the premiums in. So that comes back in September. So that's why I'm monitoring it.
Okay.
Same thing with state and different things like that. So we don't receive something that's in that.
And then Evan, how soon before we take care of the deficit from the dental plan and make that official?
So I've been working with Brittany Dubbin at our group benefit partners, and she is looking into how we actually pay that off. So I am hoping to get that taken care of here in this month of September. I just want to have the right clarity on the proper way to do that because it's we went from self-funded to fully insured. So
Thank you.
Great. Okay. Do we have any discussion questions for Evan?
Move to accept the financial reports as presented.
I'll second.
And a second to August 2021 financial reports as presented. Any discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. On to agenda item number 13, the consideration of the consent agenda.
I move to approve the consent agenda items as listed below.
I'll second.
The motion is second. Consent items as listed below. All those in favor say aye.
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 Same sign. Carries. On to agenda item number 14, big ideas. I thought one of the big ideas was Joe's presentation and talked about guardrails for the mission was a really, really unique way to put it in perspective when he talked about it, kind of keep us on that path going in the right direction. Start to, drift, I guess. We can get put back in, which was really good.
I'm glad to hear that we did well
Yeah.
financially. I think it's kind of confusing to the general public with all the COVID money and it looks like we're spending huge tons of money sometimes to them, but it's all within, we have gotten money to be able to do some things, make things healthier for kids and
We've had discussions about that too. I've had that conversation. Gosh, there's a lot of things going on, a lot of positive things, but we also want to make sure we have the best, opportunities for kids. And we make really clear, we're not the first bank at Charles City. Our job is we have to stay financially solvent. We have to have healthy reserves, but at times our reserves have become so big that, why are we for kids? And again, we're very proud. It's been many, many years since the tax rate has been increased, and so we've kept the tax rate stable here. So we want to be wise stewards of that money. But at the end of the day, it's about our primary customer, our kids. So I'm really, again, we want to make sure that we're doing the best for them.
Yeah. Yeah, that presentation was nice to see how our making and seeing to work on getting a plan together, kind of align everything with Any other? Board members? On to agenda item number 15 for correspondence and miscellaneous, and somehow we never seem to have anything in that agenda item. So one of these times we're going to have something.
But we'll have enrollment updates for once.
There we go.
Back, yeah.
Perfect. So to agenda item number 16, September 13th is today, which is our board meeting here in the high school library. 17th, we have a finance committee meeting at 7 a.m. Friday. 27th, learning day with no school. The 27th, school board meeting in the high school library. And with that, we will adjourn our meeting at 19:10. So much.
Hey, I had one thing really quick. I was gonna ask Justin, and I just remembered looking at the dates. On the school calendars that we printed off and sold, are the school board meetings listed incorrectly on those?
Yes, we're getting comments from spectators that it is incorrect. So
Okay,
you get to write in the correct because they're already printed.
Second and fourth.
Second and fourth, yeah.
Second of all.
that's what I thought, and I guess I don't know if we're still live, but I thought I would say, I meant to say that earlier and I forgot until we got to the important dates. So, yeah, if anybody's going by that calendar, that's what I was thinking. It was incorrect on there. So,
Protection. Okay, great. Now we'll adjourn officially. Thank you so much at 11. Have a great night, everybody. Thank you.
have a good night.